Greetings, viewers, and welcome to The Elite Economizer, the ultimate destination for unlocking financial success. In this video, we're peering into the not-so-distant future, specifically the 2030s, to uncover the grim prospects of a looming financial catastrophe in the United States. What's disheartening is that this isn't a sensationalized claim. It's a sobering reality. Most of us aren't taken by surprise, and the question that begs an answer is, can this dire situation be averted? Unfortunately, the odds are slim, as we've crossed the point of no return. Let's delve into the numbers. The U.S. government is shouldering a staggering $33 trillion of debt, a colossal burden it can't simply shrug off. Foolhardy would be the belief that such a debt load doesn't come with consequences. The trajectory is crystal clear. The government's total debt is on an alarming rise, and it's not showing any signs of slowing down. In fact, it's escalating. While politicians continue to overspend, it's the everyday Americans who'll bear the brunt. But here's the glimmer of hope: being prepared. If you're well prepared, you stand a chance to emerge from this catastrophe relatively unscathed. Because after this storm passes, it won't signify the end of America. Rather, it will mark the end of an era. Now, let's break down the situation. Think of it in terms of income and expenses. The federal government derives its revenue mainly from taxes collected from individuals and corporations. Tax revenue last year? An impressive $5 trillion, though this year it's a tad lower at $4 trillion due to a cooled-off stock market and the ripple effect on capital gains taxes. But here's the kicker. Government spending is projected to reach $6 trillion this year. Yes, you guessed it. That leaves us with a $2 trillion deficit, an alarming overspending problem. This deficit doesn't spell good news. It means that the government needs to borrow more money, which in turn further inflates the debt. The real challenge arises when we consider the interest on this ever-increasing debt. Back when interest rates were close to 0%, it was affordable to borrow. But now, with interest rates on the rise, servicing this debt has become significantly more expensive. As we look ahead, it's projected that interest costs will rise substantially, potentially exceeding the national defense budget within the next decade. This isn't just a financial dilemma, it's a ticking time bomb. The debt burden is destined to outstrip defense spending within the next decade. The government is facing a spending problem, a problem that can't be solved merely by cutting expenses. It's a conundrum that can't be wished away. It's a situation that needs to be confronted. Adding to this financial whirlwind is the demographic challenge. Over the next 25 years, the elderly population is expected to grow faster than the working-age population, necessitating more spending on healthcare and Social Security. Social Security, currently projected to go insolvent in 2032, raises serious questions about where the additional funds will come from. So, what's the solution? Can we just print more money? The answer is a resounding no. Printing our way out would lead to hyperinflation, a catastrophe in itself. Massive spending cuts may be an option, but that begs the question, which programs will be cut and who will be affected? These are tough choices that await us, and as interest rates continue to rise, the private sector, including the average American, will feel the pinch with higher borrowing costs. Imagine a world with mortgage rates at 15% or 20%. The economic consequences will be dire, leading to a vicious cycle of economic depression, spiraling deficits, and ever-increasing borrowing. While this may seem grim, it's also an opportunity. The silver lining is that we have time to prepare and position ourselves for what lies ahead. Together, we can navigate these uncertain waters, emerge more resilient, and secure our financial well-being. As we look into the future, it's imperative to understand that while the economic downturn we're currently experiencing might seem concerning, it's not necessarily the big one. The real storm could be lurking in the next decade. The numbers tell the story. The government and the Federal Reserve have some financial flexibility to kick the can down the road, but it's a precarious act that can't last forever. Fitch Ratings' recent downgrade of the U.S. credit rating is a stark warning sign. The University of Pennsylvania's Wharton School projects the catastrophic event to strike around 2043. But in my opinion, that might be a bit optimistic. The situation is already dire, and we're heading into uncharted territory. As we continue our deep dive into the financial landscape of the 2030s, it's vital to emphasize that the economic downturn we're experiencing today might not be the storm we should be most concerned about. The situation has several key components, each contributing to a financial crisis that seems to be lurking around the corner. Let's take a closer look at these elements and what they mean for the future of the United States and its citizens. Government spending has grown at an alarming rate in recent years. Looking at the past 2 decades, it's clear that the government's expenditure has consistently outpaced its income, leading to persistent budget deficits. The projections for the future suggest that these deficits are only expected to get worse. This overspending can be attributed to various factors, including the expansion of social programs, increased defense spending, and growing interest payments on the ballooning national debt. The challenge is that when the economy is robust, such as today, the government is still overspending by a staggering $2 trillion annually. This is during a period of historically low unemployment rates and what appears to be strong economic growth. What's alarming is that if the economy takes a downturn in the future, tax revenues will decrease due to reduced economic activity. Additionally, the government will likely be compelled to allocate more funds for stimulus packages and bailouts. Therefore, the deficits are bound to escalate further. This vicious cycle, characterized by bad economic performance, reduced tax revenue, larger deficits, and more borrowing, threatens to cripple the nation's financial stability. Another critical factor to consider is the rising interest rates. While the government can issue some long-term bonds with fixed interest rates, the majority of its debt consists of short-term instruments, like Treasury bills, and intermediate-term bonds, like Treasury notes. This means that as interest rates increase, the cost of servicing the debt also surges. While some argue that long-term bonds provide protection against rising interest rates, they do not constitute the majority of government debt. The average maturity date of all government debt currently stands at around 52 years. As interest rates increase in the broader economy, the cost of servicing this debt goes up, putting even more pressure on the federal budget. For instance, when interest rates were hovering around 0.25%, it was quite cheap for the government to borrow money. However, today, interest rates have surged. The federal funds rate, a critical benchmark, now sits at 5.5%, a vast difference from the near-zero rates of the past. This is crucial because the federal government's debt, issued at historically low interest rates, is now becoming substantially more expensive to service. Consider this. With each passing month, the average interest rate on government debt rises, adding to the financial burden. If interest rates continue to climb, the government will face even higher interest expenses in the future. Here's where it gets concerning. The projected interest costs for the next decade are on a steep upward trajectory. As the interest rate environment continues to change, the government's annual interest expenses will also surge. In fact, within the next decade, it's anticipated that interest expenses will surpass the national defense budget. Yes, you heard that right. The government will be spending more on interest payments than on national defense. The decade following that doesn't look any better. Interest expenses will likely dwarf defense spending altogether. This scenario isn't just a hypothetical one. It's backed by a simple fact. The federal government is spending more money than it has coming in, and this will only lead to a deeper financial crisis as interest payments increase. To illustrate how this situation has evolved, let's take a look at historical trends in government spending. Over the past 2 decades, government spending has consistently outpaced tax revenue. The deficit, represented by the gap between spending and revenue, has grown significantly over time. This trend highlights the urgency of the situation. It's not a recent issue, but a long-standing problem that's only getting worse. The projections indicate that deficits will continue to escalate, creating a substantial burden on future generations. One question that often arises is, why doesn't the government just cut spending? While it might seem like a straightforward solution, it's far more complicated in practice. Deciding which programs to cut is a challenging task. Many government programs serve essential functions, such as providing health care, supporting education, and maintaining infrastructure. Cutting these programs would have wide-reaching consequences and inevitably impact various segments of the population. As interest expenses rise, the government will have less money available for other vital programs and services, such as research and development, transportation, and education. This will ultimately lead to a less productive economy with reduced tax revenues. As a result, deficits will continue to grow, necessitating even more borrowing. The key takeaway here is that we're trapped in a vicious cycle. A bad economy leads to lower tax revenues, which in turn leads to larger deficits, requiring more borrowing. It's a self-perpetuating problem, and breaking free from this cycle is no small feat. The challenges don't end there. Demographics are playing a significant role in this financial conundrum. Over the next 25 years, the elderly population is expected to grow at a faster rate than the working-age population. This demographic shift is bound to increase government spending on healthcare and Social Security. Healthcare costs are projected to rise at a rate faster than overall inflation and wage growth. This can be attributed to the growing healthcare needs of the aging population, including medical care and long-term care services. Moreover, the demographic shift accelerates the Social Security crisis. Social Security, designed to provide financial support to retirees and those with disabilities, is on a trajectory to go insolvent by 2032. While it doesn't mean the program will go bankrupt, it does imply that all beneficiaries, both existing and new, will face a 25% reduction in benefits. This is a concerning prospect for many Americans who rely on Social Security as a critical source of income during retirement. Given these challenges, it's essential to ask where the additional funds will come from. As the elderly population grows, more individuals will rely on government health care programs and Social Security benefits. The government's obligations will continue to increase, adding to the already overwhelming financial burden. The situation might sound dire, and it is, but there's an element of optimism to be found. We're not helpless in this scenario. Being informed and prepared is the key to navigating these turbulent waters successfully. It's important to understand that we're not yet at the point of no return. The government and the Federal Reserve still have some financial slack to work with, allowing them to kick the can down the road. This means they can temporarily delay the full consequences of their financial mismanagement. However, this approach can't last indefinitely. In essence, the government and the Federal Reserve can continue to navigate the financial landscape for a few more years. They can delay the inevitable, but it's essential to recognize that this can't be sustained indefinitely. The day will come when there's no more road to kick the can down, and that's when we'll face the full brunt of the financial crisis. What we're witnessing today, while concerning, may not be the big one. The real challenge lies ahead in the 2030s. The numbers and the trajectory of government debt and spending patterns indicate that this will be the time when the storm truly arrives. We have some time to prepare, to make informed decisions, and to position ourselves to weather the financial challenges ahead. This perspective is shared by many economists and financial experts. Fitch Ratings recently downgraded the credit of the United States, signaling their concerns about the country's financial stability. On the academic front, institutions like the University of Pennsylvania's Wharton School are projecting that we have at most 20 years until the catastrophe strikes, which is by 2043. In conclusion, while the economic challenges of the 2030s may seem daunting, there is an opportunity for us to prepare. Being informed and proactive can make a world of difference in navigating this complex landscape. Don't miss out on our future content, where we'll continue to provide expert insights and analysis to help you understand and adapt to these changes. Subscribe to The Elite Economizer to stay informed and engaged. Thank you for your support, and here's to a prosperous future amidst the financial challenges of the 2030s. In the end, the glass is half full, not half empty. We have a window of opportunity to get ready and position ourselves strategically. While the path ahead may be challenging, it's also an opportunity for those who are informed and prepared. So, let's navigate these turbulent waters together. Don't forget to subscribe to The Elite Economizer for more expert insights and analysis. Thank you for your support, and may you prosper through the financial storms of the 2030s.